All right, boys and girls, here is chapter 9 of The Frog Princess. I am going to do chapter 9 in 2 days because it's a really long chapter. So I'll read half today and then I will post part 2 of chapter 9 for Tuesday's read aloud. Okay, so here we go. Chapter 9. It was the itching that woke me the next morning. The rash that I'd predicted the night before covered my back, and no matter how I twisted or turned, I couldn't reach all the itchy spots. I was getting desperate when I finally found that if I twisted around a certain way and rubbed against the bar of the cage, I could relieve some of the worst itching. "You look like an old bear when you do that," said a voice from above. Not that I've seen many old bears. A bright shaft of sunlight came through a high hole on the wall, in the general direction from which the voice had come. At first I thought I might be having a divine visitation, but the voice had been high and squeaky. Not at all sort of a voice I thought would belong to a divine being. Maybe it's a trick, I thought. But it couldn't be Edric. He was still sound asleep. It wasn't the witch either. I could see her lying on her back with her head turned to the side. Her mouth was open, drool trickling onto the thin mattress which was stained gray. "Where are you?" I asked, squinting through the shaft of sunlight and the dancing dust motes. Other than the cracks in the shutters covering the 2 windows, the hole in the wall was the only source of light in the room. "I'm up here," squeaked the voice, "by the rafters." I looked toward the ceiling. A tiny patch of darkness seemed to shift, but I couldn't be sure. "Sorry," I said. "I can't really make you out from here." "But I'm right here." "Oh, forget it. Here, is this better?" A bit of shadow detached itself from the rafter and flapped down into the dimly lit room. "Oh my!" I said, taken by surprise. It was a bat. As a rule, I didn't like bats, although I've never encountered one in person before. It was just that I'd heard so many bad things about them. "Are you satisfied yet? Can I go back to my rafter now?" the bat asked. "Of course," I said, embarrassed by my bad manners. "I didn't mean to inconvenience you." "Inconvenience? My, aren't you a nice little frog? None of the other idiots around here would ever think about what it is or isn't convenient for me. Take that nasty little witch on the bed, for instance." I turned toward the witch in the back of the room, afraid that she might be awake and listening. "Don't worry," said the bat. "Vanabee's still asleep. I always know when she's awake, believe me. Anyway, she never thinks about what's convenient for me. It's always, 'Go away, you stupid bat,' or 'Get that bug, you stupid bat,' or if I didn't know better, I'd think my name was Stupid Bat. It isn't, of course. It's Lil Stinker. That's what my first mistress named me when I was a youngster. Now that woman was far more considerate. She used to say, 'Lil Stinker, you'd better get that fat juicy bug or you won't have any dinner tonight.' See what I mean? She was a much more thoughtful person." I was beginning to feel overwhelmed. I had always thought that bats were quite quiet creatures, but this bat could talk more than anyone I've ever met. I rubbed my back against the bar again. The rash was itching more now and was spreading to my chest. "I couldn't help but hear you talking to Vanabee last night," said Lil. "You can talk to humans, huh? That's too bad. The only humans I can talk to are witches with the talent, and that's the way I like it. So, did your friend eat a worm?" "He sure did. He ate the whole thing. I'm afraid that he'd been poisoned, but he's fine." "I wouldn't say that exactly. He's still asleep, isn't he?" "Well, yes, but neither of us have gotten much sleep lately. He's really tired." "Is that it? Go shake him and wake him up." "I was going to let him sleep for a while. He needs his rest." "Go shake him now and see what he does." "I'd rather not." "Just do it. It's for your own good." It was obvious that the bossy little bat was going to pester me until I did what she said. Reluctantly, I hopped to Edric's side and gently shook his shoulder. He continued to snore. I shook him harder. He snored and rolled over. "I can't seem to wake him," I said, frowning. "Of course not. You won't be able to if he ate that worm. Didn't you see that vial Vanabee had in her hand? It was sleeping potion. A tiny drop and you'll sleep for days. What do you think those witches used to help Sleeping Beauty and Snow White get all that beauty rest? A full vial can knock you out for 100 years or more. Now, unless you want to take a very long nap, I suggest that you don't let the witch know that you're still awake. Go curl up somewhere and pretend that you're asleep, or she'll find another way to give you that potion." She has her reasons for wanting you to stay quiet. Now watch out, Little Stinker said softly. She's waking up. I scurried to the back of the cage and pretended to be asleep, just in case the bat was right. With my eyes half closed, I watched Vannaby yawn, sit up, and scratch her ribs. Drool shone wetly on her cheek, but she didn't seem to notice. Kicking off the grimy blanket, she swung her feet to the floor. "What are you looking at?" Vannaby said grumpily, looking up at the bat. Little Stinker didn't give her an answer, but the witch obviously didn't expect one, for she stood up and shuffled across the room without another word. Still in her bare feet, Vannaby went out the door, leaving it open. I thought the fresh air would be a relief, but instead it stirred up the dust in the room and recirculated the odor of unwashed clothes, filthy cages, bat droppings, and old grease. I was almost happy to see the witch come back inside and close the door behind her. Still scratching her ribs, Vannaby shuffled to the fireplace, where she bent over the fire, her back to our cage. She lifted a wooden spoon from a hook on the wall and stirred something in the greasy black pot. Then she took it to the table in the middle of the room and sat down to eat. When she was finished, she scraped the bottom of the pot with her wooden spoon. "Here now, can't have anyone go hungry with all this food around, can we?" said the witch as she walked toward our side of the room. "Don't eat it all at once, 'cause you won't be getting any more today." My view was blocked by a stack of books on one side and a collection of bottles on the other, but I could hear the other creatures moving about in their cages as the witch gave them each their own dollop of food. When the witch came near our cage, I kept my eyes closed and made my breath come slowly and evenly, trying to make it sound like Edric's. Vannaby opened the cage door, and I thought my heart would beat its way out of my chest, but I willed myself to hold still. Even when a long fingernail poked me in the ribs, I kept my eyes closed and stayed as limp as I could. "Princess, huh?" Vannaby's voice was harsh and mocking. "What's it like being a frog, Miss High and Mighty?" The hand moved away and I refused to look, picturing Edric receiving the same treatment. "As for you, Prince, slain any dragons lately? Or is it dragonflies now?" Vannaby laughed, and the shrill sound grating on my eardrums. And people say that I have a strange laugh, I thought. When the cage door had shut with a soft click and I was sure that the witch had moved away, I opened my eyes to slits and was relieved to see her pick up her sack from the floor and head out the door. "Behave yourselves, vermin," she told the animals. "No wild parties while I'm gone." Laughing, the witch slammed the door behind her. With the witch gone, I could finally relax. I bent my legs and scratched my back with my toe, but I still couldn't reach the really itchy spots. For the first time, I was able to take a better look at my surroundings. The cottage was small, with the witch's bed against the wall opposite the door. Lil Stinker hung from a rough-hewn rafter near the front of the cottage and appeared to be asleep. Birds' bones suspended from a frayed cord clattered together. Our cage rested on a dusted-covered shelf next to a stack of books. The skull of an unborn baby dragon sat on top of the books, the dust so thick that the eye sockets were nearly filled. A collection of jars and bottles stood on the other side of the cage. They were all labeled, although some of the labels were turned so I couldn't read them. Rabbit's ears, cat's tails, wild boar's tusks filled some of the larger jars, and crystals and dried compounds filled the others. One jar was filled with dark blue fuzzy clumps and was labeled Troll Navel Lint. Another contained smooth white balls suspended in clear liquid. When one bobbed about, turning to stare at me, I gasped. They were eyeballs, obviously alive, from the way they jostled for position. I quickly realized that there were other jars with living contents, like the squirming, puckering pieces of green flesh in a jar labeled lizard lips, and the wrinkled, snuffling pig snouts. The contents of one slim vial may not have been alive, but the colored gases swirled, mixing and separating in intricate, never-repeating patterns. Something thumped by the fireplace, and I scurried across my cage to look. There was nothing there but an old stick used for poking logs, and two cruddy, constructed barrels, one labeled trash can, the other trash can. The trash can was uncovered. When I listened carefully, I thought I could hear something gurgling inside. A wooden lid covered the trash can, and as I watched, I could see the whole thing shake and thump. To my surprise, I could also hear creatures calling from other cages. "Who are you?" squeaked one voice. "I don't know, but I heard one of them talking to Lil Stinker." The speaker's voice was so faint and breathy that I had to strain to hear it. "Do you think she'll introduce us?" I don't know. Ask Miss Bossy. You know she's always has to be in charge. I'd be happy to, interrupted the bat, but I don't know their names yet. Hey there, Frog. Because I'd heard the entire conversation, I was ready when Lil called to me. I'm Emma, and this is Edric. We're both enchanted frogs. I'm a princess, and Edric is really a prince. I had never heard animals howl with laughter before. It would have made me feel defensive if they hadn't sounded so funny. I began to laugh too, and suddenly I felt the best I had in days. Lil shifted around on her perch until she faced me and waited until my laughter grew weak enough that I could hear her. That's some laugh you got there, princess, Lil declared as I hiccuped my way to silence. Did you get that when you became a frog, or have you always had it? It's my laugh no matter who I am. My real name is Princess Emeralda, and his is Prince Edric. I'm the only child of King Limeland and Queen Chartreuse of the Kingdom of the Greater Grindelwald. Edric is the eldest son of the rulers of Upper Monte Vista. Proud of my royal heritage, I was sure that these creatures couldn't help but respect me now, so I was stunned by the reception my news received. Yeah, right. Then I'm King Mouseworthy, squeaked another. The creatures acted as if they'd heard the funniest thing in the whole world. Lil Stinker laughed so hard that she tumbled off her rafter and flapped wildly, trying to regain her balance. Indignant, I tried to shout over the laughter. But I really am a princess. I can play the lute, and embroider, and sing, and dance, and do all the other things that princesses are supposed to do, although not as well as my mother would like. I can also do some other things that most princesses can't do. I can count and read and... Did you say read? Asked Lil, suddenly becoming serious. Why, yes, I said. And I can swim, although I couldn't do it before I became a frog. I can... All right, I believe you. All right, I believe you. That's quite a list of accomplishments, said Lil. It sure is, chimed a breathy voice. I wish I could count. It would probably help me with some of my patterns. My legs were beginning to itch. The rash was spreading. Now it's your turn, I said, feeling moderately appeased. I want to hear everyone else's names. That's easy enough, said the little bat. I'm Lil, as you know, and in the cage below you are the spiders, Eeny, Meeny, and Mo. They used to live by the broom in the corner, but Vannaby found them and stuck them in a cage. We had another brother named Miney, whispered a tiny voice, but the witch stepped on him when she caught us. Oh, I'm so sorry, I said furiously, scratching behind my eardrum. It's one of the hazards of being a spider, said the voice sadly. Clifford and Louise live in the cage next to the spiders, continued Lil. Clifford and Louise are the mice who used to live under the bed. They've been together for a long time, so they tend to finish each other's sentences. Vannaby, she got tired of hearing us scurry around. She put us in a cage, and we don't have anywhere to go. It's so boring. We used to have the best adventures. You wouldn't believe what we found in the walls. And I'm going to stop there.